It's more important to make sure that we're touching upon how you feel within a space, not just how it looks. Something that is made out of a synthetic fiber, it's going to cause you to sweat. I know you've been in this house for 3 years, but have you ever recognized that there's an echo in your dining room? And I said, what do you need an entire cabinet full of these dolls for? When you become aware that this is the reason that you're holding onto your books because you think it makes you appear smart. It's like, I've read half of so many books. A glass dining room table is not always the smartest if your children are using that every day.
Dane Austin. I am so excited to have you on my podcast. It is amazing to get to know you. I know we didn't get a chance to meet in person in Asheville for the Whole Home 2024 project, which again, I immediately knew when I stepped into your living room and dining area that we have some kind of connection. So, welcome to home therapy.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you. I really appreciate you asking me to be a guest and to just have an opportunity to meet with you face to face in this way is exciting.
Well, you are a very established interior designer, but what I really appreciate about you is your heart, your intention for your designs and your clients. I just intuitively can tell your thoughtfulness for color selection, textiles, down to the custom art. Again, I have to reference the Whole Home project because I saw in person your project there and it really left an impression for me. I'd like to dive in and just ask, our my first question to you, which is your
Sure.
design philosophy. I can tell that it really reflects your clients' stories and lifestyles. How do you approach uncovering their narratives during this design process, and how do they guide you in creating a beautiful home for your clients?
Well, it all starts with deep listening, just really getting to know the client. And we have a lot of tools that we utilize in order to do that in a very efficient way. And I never want someone to feel like, oh, this is going to be this long, drawn out, get to know you experience. We know how to really sort of take the shortcut to really get to know you. And so it doesn't feel like you're divulging too much necessarily. And there's multiple ways because everybody learns differently and shares differently. Some people don't really like so much face-to-face conversation, they'd rather write it down or put it into an email, or others would rather just have a quick conversation with you, chat about things. So we ask for a lifestyle questionnaire to be filled out, and we have the clients go through that. And then we also offer the opportunity to sit down and have a face-to-face discussion or a phone conversation or a Zoom call or whatever it takes to put you at ease and to be in your element so you're comfortable in sharing these things about you. And we want to know everything down to what your favorite restaurant is and your favorite place to vacation and why your favorite restaurant, and not just about what is it about the way that restaurant or that hotel looks, but what is it about the way that it makes you feel? Like, is it the experience? Is it the service? Is it the beautiful down pillows? Whatever that those experiences may be, we want to extract that information from you. So yes, it's really an in-depth dive into your needs, wants, and wishes, but also every person has a different idea of their definition for quality and luxury and beauty, and it's our job to pull that out of you.
Well, I love that. I really see my consultations, especially the initial one, that very first one where you're getting to know somebody as like almost like an intake session, during therapy. And it sounds like for you, it's a similar process of really finding what makes them feel good, what makes them tick. How did you arrive at, delving deeper into it? Because I know a lot of times it's kind of easy to just go to interior design school or go to some kind of like for me, I was counseling school first. Over time with clients, you evolve your method or style, but was there a aha moment that you or was it just something inside of you that likes to go deeper with your clients?
It's definitely the latter. I studied psychology and sociology in college, and I was looking at a double major for design and the history of art, but also I was wanting to go into therapy for children and adults of trauma, and I really appreciate how much all of that experience and that education feeds what I do today. And there's no greater joy for me than the opportunity to get to know a family and how we can deliver the most exceptional spaces that are at a level beyond their expectations and beyond their imagination. It's just this sort of innate curiosity and real deep seated interest and connection and getting to know people and my appreciation for community and family.
I am so impressed, and also, again, another confirmation of why I was so drawn to you and your work and just your personhood, you as a human being. We had talked initially a few months back, and I had hung up and texted my sister and said, "I think I found a new friend."
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I just feel very aligned with how you approach life and design. Again, back to that holistic perspective, balancing form and function while addressing the emotional well-being of our clients. I'm curious, do you have a project or 2 in mind that you can share with us of how you integrated those elements?
All of our design is in some way linked to and rooted in inspiration from natural surroundings and nature. That could be influenced by your favorite vacation destination or things that you collect. I have clients who may collect rocks or feathers or images of nests and birds or whatever those things may be, and figuring out what is it about the colors within nature or surrounding your home and the views outside, and how do we create a symbiotic relationship between the interior and the exterior. A few things that come to mind are a project we did recently that was deep in the woods, and there was a creek running through their home, and you could see the golden leaves on the ground outside. You know, they turn to this beautiful cognac color in the fall and when they drop, and you have the tops of the tree trunks and the lichen, that soft
Mm.
mossy lichen. It's almost like aqua blue and some
Yeah.
mustard golds on the sides of the rocks and the trees outside. And so those became the inspiration for how we could bring those colors indoors, and we use those colors in the foundation of the space on the custom rug, which was a beautiful jumping off point. And then that gave us color clues moving forward into the rest of the design throughout the home.
That sounds so dreamy.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. Another project that we did on the coast, she said no blue and white. She didn't want it to be that sort of expected blue and white color palette. So we turned to the color of the sea grasses and the sunset sky, you know, the lavenders and rosy colors or soft greens of the water outside the views. It's always sort of subtle ways in which we're connecting nature to the palettes indoors, but those are the most soothing to any of us, you know, those are the most prominent colors that we're surrounded by and the things that we naturally find soothing.
I really like your example, the second one where she said, "I don't want that typical blue and white." I run into a lot of client projects where they have opinions, and rightly so, of like what they want and what they don't want. How do you pivot when a client doesn't align with the nature? Our houses where I live and where my clients live, it's very Mediterranean. And I have a lot of clients that feel confined to the Mediterranean style because the exterior is Mediterranean, and I want to help them explore, but what is a landscape or palette or nature environment that really speaks to you? It doesn't have to be very Spanish and Californian, if it's
Mhm.
something more rustic, no one's gonna drive by and look inside your house to see, what makes you vibe. What are other ways to help pivot, bringing that good feeling if it doesn't necessarily match your idea or the house's styles idea? How do you navigate that for the client?
I think it's an innate artistry, truly. I mean, I did go to art school. I studied at the Corcoran College of Art and Design in Washington, D.C., now part of George Washington University. And through that, study abroad in London at Sotheby's Institute of Art. and then through that, Institute of Superior Arts in Paris. And so I grew up going to art school and going to auctions and seeing all of the various elements of the history of decorative arts and design. There's something about extracting from people the things that they are most happy to surround themselves with. Even if they don't know what that is, I think it's really up to us to figure it out. And I appreciate the artistry that goes into creating whatever spaces speak to them most. And I love when you come up to the property of a person's home and the exterior doesn't necessarily match the interior. You know, you might come up to a historic or antique home and you go inside and it's very contemporary furniture. I love that surprise element. Or you could go visit with a client or friend in a, a new skyscraper high rise in your city, and you go inside and they have moldings and traditional furnishings, and it's can be very unexpected. But I think it's wonderful, that juxtaposition that's created and the unexpected tension, but it also feels like that person, you know. And the interior does not necessarily have to match the exterior. And and if that's what you prefer, then that's great too. I really do feel like we're just good at creating whatever it is the client decides that they that they want, and we help them figure it out along the way.
I have a hunch you would agree is helping them break through their limiting beliefs about what their home should be versus what they want and what how their lifestyle lends into the furniture choices or the color choices or the furniture space planning, turning one room that was previously designated as a dining room and changing it into something totally unexpected because that's what fits their season in life, just really helping them break through those limiting beliefs or mental hangups that it should be something versus what they truly want. That kind of goes back to the intentionality of your designs. Besides intentionality, something that I noticed also in your work is sustainability and being really mindful into your practice with your designs. Do you have any advice on continuing to be mindful and sustainable, but then not compromise the beauty or luxury of an item? I know even with my second book, I'm writing a lot about biophilic design and sustainability. And it's easy to just list off cork or bamboo or, like very sustainable features. But what if someone, a listener or a client may not be super attuned to certain sustainable materials? How do we find that balance of being sustainable, but also incorporate that what we like in a home? What would your advice be?
I have a lot of thoughts on this and a lot of practical advice as well. I think it first starts with investing in quality, pieces that are not fast furniture tossed out in a few years and replaced with something else. I think it's important to invest in pieces that you can use for decades. And especially when it comes to upholstery, I love to have custom made upholstery pieces to the exact specifications that matter most to a client, whether it's the cant of the seat, or you know, the pitch and the arm height and the depth, all of the things that are going to help make those pieces feel comfortable to sit in. And I always say it's more important to make sure that we're touching upon how you feel within a space, not just how it looks. And for me, comfort is the ultimate luxury. I think it's also a good idea to look for pieces that have already been produced, that we're not custom making everything. That would be incorporating antiques and vintage pieces. I love creating a design up to a point of about 80 to 90% of the way finished, and then planning for the rest. So we know we want to use a vintage or antique buffet in this dining room space to go with your brand new custom dining table, but we don't know what that is yet, and it will present itself when it's time. And through our sourcing, looking for other clients, travels, and road trips, eventually we will come upon this piece that we know we want to be no more than 84 inches, approximately 34 to 36 inches high, perhaps something up on legs because it will free up the vent or the intake, you know, a lighter, airier quality to it. all those sort of details, I think it's nice when you can pre-plan for this is where we'd love to have an antique piece or a vintage piece. And I really love to try to fit something into every room if possible. So you might have an antique dresser in one room and a cool, unexpected sculptural chair from the mid century in a different space. And something that was picked up from a road trip or a family heirloom that's passed down to you. So, all of these pieces that have meaning and a story and a provenance before you have them in your home. And when it all comes together, it still feels like collected over time.
Are there some specific sustainability materials that are up and coming or new that you find fascinating? I know for me, I forget the technical term. I'll have to put it in the notes later, but they're using mushroom.
Oh, yes, I've seen that. Mushroom leather.
Yes, mushroom leather, which is really fascinating to me in your discovery of new, not necessarily trends, but just sustainability tools and ideas. Do you have any few that have piqued your interest, even if you haven't tried it yet?
Well, I think for me, I always try to lean towards the organic and natural materials. Always point out that if you ever spend time sitting on something that is made out of a synthetic fiber, acrylic or polypropylene or polyester or whatever that material may be, it's going to cause you to sweat and it's not comfortable on your skin. You're sitting on plastic material or, God forbid, wearing plastic material clothing and it doesn't breathe either. Looking at materials like wool and even silk or cotton and linen, it can be a wool velvet or a cotton velvet or like paying attention to the materiality of things and what you're upholstering pieces in. You can have some things that are blends because that can help with durability and longevity, and that in itself will help it last longer because it's easier to maintain or easier to keep clean. If it's a blend, in certain instances, I can be okay with that as well, because I do want you to have these pieces to last a very long time. There's a tipping point, and there's something about what we do where we have to know all about double rubs and how to clean these pieces and what's going to pill and what gets furry or hairy with wear. And even just using rugs that are 100% wool because the natural lanolin in those fibers repel moisture and things bead up and it's easier to blot up a spill of red wine on your carpet. And even if it does get stained, it's going to release that stain easily because you've hopefully treated that, or your carpet cleaner can fix the mess for you. So I think that that's really what comes to mind when I think about the materiality of more sustainable things and using pieces that are going to help us feel comfortable when we sit in and use them.
The feeling and as a, person with a psychological background, just knowing the science, the cognitive science and the architectural, the neuroscience to everything is so fascinating of how our brain responds. And so I'm curious because even though I see in your portfolio very put together and refined and very beautiful work, I know that it doesn't matter if it's a client with a large budget or a client with a smaller budget. There's always some kind of space planning involved because of a wall that you wish you could take down, but you can't, or some kind of blockage of a flow, just even bringing natural light into a darker room. How, with these common pain points, are there a few tips or tricks that you can share with our listeners as far as making a space feel lighter and brighter or making a space feel bigger when their space is tiny?
Yes, definitely. I appreciate what you're saying in terms of how a space will feel because that's again what we focus on most. I always say it's going to be beautiful in the end. It's going to look great. But when it's finished, what I care most about is how do you feel in the space and how does your loved ones feel when they come over to visit you? How are your house guests going to feel when they come and stay in this room or spend time in the sitting area? I think some common tips or tricks would just be to like
Mhm.
utilize the room that you have with comfortable and well-sized furnishings, in the sense that I think one thing that people do often is to think a smaller room needs smaller furnishings. where you should really fill the space and utilize a standard size 84-inch sofa or a standard 30 to 36-inch club chair, and make sure that it's going to have the depth that you would like to be able to sit in those pieces. One thing that stands out to me when I'm in a space or when I'm initially doing a walkthrough with clients is the sound quality first and the light quality as well. So that's not really something that you can touch or sit on, but it matters more to me to have those aspects addressed because there might be an echo that could be fixed and remedied by having draperies on the windows or using a grass cloth wall covering or utilizing a custom cut and bound rug or carpet in the space that still has a reveal of the beautiful hardwoods below, but it expands the room, it fills the space, it helps with the echo, and it gives the room an anchor so that when you have some club chairs or occasional chairs floating in the room, they don't feel like they're floating out to nowhere because they're anchored by that large rug.
Okay, you just piqued my interest and curiosity. So, when you're talking about sound and echo, are you saying it's usually echo from the room being too large, or any room can have some kind of echo and that can kind of create a dissonance in us feeling calm at home?
Absolutely. It can be this underlying subconscious irritation that you're not necessarily picking up on consciously when there's an echo in the space. And I'll give you an example. We went to visit with an architect a few months ago, and stopped her and said, I know you've been in this house for 3 years, but have you ever recognized that there's an echo in your dining room, that there's this tinniness to the sound quality in here? And she said, I never thought about it, but now that you mention it, I absolutely noticed that. And I realized that she didn't really have any soft surfaces. There's hardwood floors and a hardwood table and hardwood chairs. They might have had slip seat, but there was not a lot of upholstery. And even the window treatments were pretty skimpy. So there was nothing to help absorb the sound. And when I said, I feel like nice sized rug under your dining table would go a long way. And she had mentioned that they never really had a rug growing up because one of their siblings had made a mess and spilled something and they got into a lot of trouble. And so that was a deep-seated like trauma point for her in a sense that she thought you couldn't have a dining room rug because something would spill and then, it was a red flag or raising the alert button within her to say like this is not a good thing to do. But I think that it's absolutely fine, and there are many ways in which you can get a great rug in your dining room that is durable.
I love that story. We have so many core memories, positive and negative, about how a home should be, quote unquote, how it should look like, how it should feel based on our familial origins, and how maybe our parents brought us up and or just our experiences, everyday experiences at home. I know I have very fond memories of our tiny little kitchen growing up with my grandma making dumplings, and then other people have fond memories of their bedroom that has Laura Ashley. Like, I personally had Laura Ashley in my bedroom, and that was a big, like, splurge for my mom, but I to this day, I actually have a Laura Ashley table lamp in my bedroom right now because my mom is downsizing, and I went to help her pack and move, and I found my Laura Ashley. I couldn't find the bedding, but I found the little lampshade, and it's actually I put it next to my nightstand. It doesn't necessarily match the rest of my room, but you know what? Every night when I go to sleep, I feel so happy because it reminds me of my junior high years of my Laura Ashley room.
It
I
brings you
mean,
joy.
it brings me so much happiness, but I love how you're able to help clients break through some memories that might not be as ideal, but again, breaking through those limiting beliefs of the shoulds, woulds, and coulds and into something of, like, the freedom of
Mhm.
making a home theirs and feeling good that way. That's a wonderful story, and the sound part, like, I usually would focus maybe on traffic. So if it's like a apartment next to a large, busy street, or a house, the backyard's next to a busy street, we can address sound issues for the inside. But I never thought of just noticing about echoes because of whatever like you said, there was a lot of hard surfaces. It's not even necessarily a huge room or anything. but I really do think that impacts our happiness factor of feeling comfortable at home.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the blessings of being HSP or a highly sensitive person.
Why are we so, like, aligned? I'm totally an HSP.
Yeah, it's something that was pointed out to me many years ago when I used to work for a design firm, and I was very sensitive to the spaces that we would go into, in public spaces, commercial spaces, or restaurants. And if you could hear the clanging and banging in the kitchen from them preparing the meals, or if you're seated in a certain area where you have the beautiful golden warm lights over the dining areas, but then you can see the blue fluorescence in the kitchen and just how jarring it can be to have to look at both of those at the same time. I really dislike going to restaurants that have television screens and multiple television screens. It's just like sensory overload. It's sort of a blessing and a curse in a sense because I still speak up for my needs and I will say I'm so sorry, but do you mind if we switch tables, or would it be okay if I sat there because it'll be less distracting and you'll have my full attention and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a blessing and curse. I think for our clients, it's more of a blessing. Maybe for our relationships at home, it might be a curse. Who knows?
Right,
Um,
because we want everything just so.
like you said, it's like a physiological thing. I get a lot of, I guess it's what you call like auras, certain sounds. Like somebody will pick up a fork downstairs, and if I'm upstairs, it hurts my body. Like I just have certain sound sensitivities when I get through those like aura episodes. I'm sure there's something related to migraines.
Absolutely, I get that.
Just sound, or like somebody closing the door. I can literally hear the doorknob, like the hand on the door. It's crazy.
Well, it's very sensual. We're very sensual people in that sense. It's all about our senses and everything, and I try to address this with clients within their homes. It's every detail. It's not just about the way it looks. Of course, that is very important, but it's about the way that you feel, the way that the touch, the hand of the fabrics that you're sitting on and that you're using every day, and the silhouette and the way that it sits, but also the way that the room sounds and the lighting and the light quality, and to make sure that you're able to light all corners of the room. In this room that I'm sitting in, you can't see the lamps on either side of these servers in my dining room. But then on top of the bar in the other corner, there's a beautiful sculptural piece that's made out of stone and that lights up. And then in the other corner, there's a sconce on the wall. And of course, there's a beautiful chandelier overhead. And everything is on dimmers. And in the evening, I love having that sconce light on, and it's the only thing on in this room. But every time I pass by and see it's just that warm, natural glow highlighting a beautiful piece of art. When we're doing a big reveal at the end of a project, we want to tantalize all of your senses, and it's smell, sight, taste, sound, and touch. And so, of course, it's going to look beautiful. We want the fabrics and everything to feel beautiful. We often talk about the space could use a rug because it needs something soft underfoot, or put a runner on the stairs so that it provides safety in case somebody slips and falls in their socks on the hardwood floors. But then inviting people into their home, we turn the light levels down in which the level that they would be entertaining. And we're serving appetizers and food and snacks, their favorite hors d'oeuvres. We put that out on the kitchen island. We're serving champagne or raspberry lemonade for the children, and we're playing soft music in the background, their favorite music, because we figure out what that is as part of our lifestyle questionnaire. Or we'll put on standards, we'll have Louis Armstrong, Billie Holiday, Frank Sinatra playing in the background, because that calms people and it resonates with them. And I really do think about the various ways in which we decorate our lives, whether it's the way that we decorate our bodies with the clothes we wear and the way we do our hair, to the jewelry we finish with. And I was making avocado toast the other day, and I love putting it's such a great snack any time of day. It's
Protein, you never feel guilty about it, and it's very satiating.
Absolutely. I love it on sourdough. You know, you get those carbs, you get the protein, and you get the fat that you need, and it's good fat. So, but I realized this would be so pretty with a little bit of feta sprinkled on it, and then a little bit of cilantro, and finish it with a squeeze of sriracha sauce. So just imagine the beauty of the color on the plate. Like I realized I literally decorated my dinner. And so and music is so important for me. I grew up having many different genres played around me. I have a large family, and my grandmother loved country, my grandfather loved classical, my aunt loved rock and roll, my friends, some of them listen to rap, my mother listened to Fleetwood Mac. Like I have all of these amazing experiences, and I love all of it, and I can get into all. I respect all of it, and I appreciate the artistry and the poetry of the lyrics, whether it's rap or country music or standards. You know, I just love it all. And music, I realize, is the way that you decorate time.
Wow, I appreciate that so much. Decorating time is very similar to decorating our memories of our home,
Yes.
having those musical notes floating in the air. What a connection that brings the clients to themselves and to the people that they live with. And that kind of brings me into my last question. Is there one element or a design decision that you feel is the most significant impact on transforming someone who wants to live their most authentic self at home? I know for me, when I design homes, not only is it to feel good, but as a therapist, I think about the relationships and how those can thrive, whether it's a relationship with yourself, living by yourself, if you're with your partner and or with kids, how do the relationships thrive in that space? So, is there a design element or decision that you feel like the most significant to amplify that feel good energy or anything to help someone feel like they can live their best authentic life at home?
Originally, when I had seen that as a pre-question, I thought, well, color is the least expensive and fastest way to change the look and feel of any space. And I think it's the greatest way to convey personality. But in terms of living well within your space, really now that I have thought about this, it would be organization. Everything having a place, having everything in its place, you know, mise en place. I love the idea of having everything in its place and having a space for each thing. And then decluttering so much of what we do for clients when we come upon families that have been in a home for a long time. Perhaps they're renovating or they're downsizing or they just want to freshen up after their adult children have finished college and they're coming back home more often, but they want to redo their whole home. And it's really about editing and minimizing the clutter, reducing things that no longer bring you joy. I remember helping an elderly client. Her family had happened to be in town when we were doing one of our meetings. And suddenly we just started decluttering the whole house. She had carved wood mallards and little figurines and dolls and all of these things around the house that people had gifted her and given her over time that came from her children and her grandchildren and great grandchildren. And I said, what do you need an entire cabinet full of these dolls for? Or why is this shelf filled with carved mallards? It's like, well, I had one or two once and I liked them and people saw that. And so they started gifting them to me. And so then she said, I really only like these three. And I said, well, why don't we just keep these three and then find a new home for the rest? And she said, you know what? I really like that idea. And just then she went through the cabinet of dolls and her daughter was like, I would love to have these few. And she's like, okay, they're yours. And maybe one of her daughters took one or so, but we were able to take away that cabinet full of dolls that she had collected over time. And there was a figurine at some point, and she was like, picked it up, and she's like, I don't even remember where I got this. We can just donate it. And one of her daughters like, hey, I gave you that. And she said, well, take it back. So I just realized like we really transformed that space that day, even by getting rid of all the stuff that had built up around the rooms.
That's where I feel like we are therapists to our clients because I don't know if she would have gone to that extent without your presence and your guidance and you being up there of moral support and questioning, like, hey, what do you think about this? Or I know helping my mom, we've been in this current house of hers for 35 years and she is going through so many of her collections.
That's so great.
It's great, and there's such an emotional dynamic to it. Now, as daughters, it's a little different from an outside third party like an interior designer, so we get into a little more of a tussle here and there about what to keep or not, because she's just emotionally tied to everything, so it's a little hard as daughters, but I see the benefit of revisiting things, even if you're not moving. It made me think twice. I don't know if it made you think twice after the going home that day of like, what things do I need to edit now so I don't have to wait 35 years later, you know?
Well, I came across this book that I have found as a useful tool for clients who have a hard time letting go of things. And there's actually a few of them, but I really appreciate Mark Burnett's, who used to be on that TV show, I think called Clean House. So his book is called Take the You Out of Clutter. And it talks about all the ways and all the reasons why we hold on to things. When you become aware that this is the reason that you're holding on to your books because you think it makes you appear smart to other people, and I realized that even in my own book collection, I haven't read a third of them. I got a great recommendation. I dropped it into my cart and I placed the order and it arrived. Then it ended up in a stack next to five other books that I've started reading. And, it's like I've read half of so many books, but I get to a point sometimes where I realize that someone else could use this maybe more than I can right now. For me, great design comes down to ease of use and peace of mind. When a client is deciding that they found a bedside table that has a glass top, and I think, you know, I know how I live. I have a bottle of lotion on the side of my bed, and I love a glass of water next to my bed. And in the winter months, to help with the humidity, I sleep with a humidifier. I know that this glass is going to be a nuisance for you to try to keep clean on a regular daily basis. So perhaps we go with something that has a high gloss painted finish or a lacquered vellum or something like that. That's much easier to clean. It's not going to show the watermarks or the little smear of lotion that might get on there occasionally. Of course, most people have cleaning rituals or perhaps housekeepers and things, but still, like a glass dining room table is not always the smartest if your children are using that every day. Or, there's so many ways in which I think about the ease of use. This is going to be frustrating rather than easy to live with.
That I think can be our final takeaway is the ease of use and you mentioned peace of mind. Those are two very easy reminders and takeaways for anyone who's listening today. I think we get overwhelmed so much with our daily busy schedules. A lot of times, just clutter, it just becomes a way of life, whether we want it or not. But to edit with the concept in mind of what's ease of use, like what's something sustainable and doable for me to clean up or to have to help me stay organized. I think that's really important. And then what gives me peace of mind. You've hit upon two really important things that we can end with today. And Dane, I just want to thank you so much for your time. You've been such a joy to have, but also insightful, introspective, and obviously very talented.
You're so sweet. Thank you so much, Anita. I really enjoyed chatting with you, and I appreciate you inviting me on the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and I hope you can come back and visit soon.
Absolutely. I would love to. Thank you.